Hello and welcome to episode 45. The green screen's going crazy. So we'll do something different. Hey, we do thank you guys for being here today. We have a special guest. We have half of Renzi. We have Ryan here. Lindsay is not here, but I'm sure she's somewhere. So upstairs is preparing for the big show tonight. Guys, you won't want to miss the rest of this episode. We're digging into their shift in business and what they're doing now and versus what they used to do. And hopefully it will be a lot of great information that you can take and adapt. I had the opportunity, privilege of meeting Ryan and Lindsay last year at FlipCon. And once again, got to reconnect with them this year. So it's great to have them on the show. We are so thankful to have Ryan. And as always, Cernoc's Connection with us, Cernoc, Tim over the years, and Blood, Sweat, Cell. These are some recent YouTube guys. You might see some videos popping up from them that are coming out recently, so you will want to go check them out. But we do want to go ahead and recognize a few things. First of all, we want to thank our channel member for being a part of this show. We have Azcat Sue, Simply Shenanigans Shanna, Diane Matthews, Blood, Sweat, and Cell, Trash Cash, Rets, New England, Betty Boop, Joe Deals, Old School Picker, Vintage Sports Flips, Charities, Terrific Finds, and Kathleen, the Fernway Flipper. And last but not least, we definitely do not want to forget to thank our friend Kent Daigle for being a part of the channel. We do thank each and every one of you guys. Don't forget, if you want to join the channel, feel free to do so. We do offer the opportunity to do a private live stream at least once a month to where we get together and ask. You can ask your specific questions of us. We can look at your store if you want us to, or whatever you need help with. We're happy to do that with you guys. So don't forget that. We do have a couple comments that I wanted to make mention of before we get too deep into the show. Some from this last episode. Lisa Durr writes, great information, guys. Parts and lots as well as football was a great reminder to have in the front of our minds. The jacket lowdown. That wasn't too shabby. You're appreciated, Tim. I'm with you. Community is everything. See you next week. Yes, more coat and jacket identification is amazing. Your deep dives are always the best. That's a shout out to Cernoc. Kathleen, the Fernway Flipper, says, great video as always. Just ended and sold similar all my jackets and coats. Thanks for the great info. And all I've got to say is Tim has the best, absolute best laugh on YouTube. So there you go. So we have Ingrid Munson 2513 says such an excellent video. And Fartsack Jack says NOS mower parts is go. So there you go. So just a few comments. And guys, if you have any questions or comments for us, you can check us out on Instagram, on Facebook, and also here on YouTube. So we don't want to take a ton of time to get into our introduction, but we do want to bring Ryan on, and we're going to get him to give some tips for us. But first, give a brief introduction, if you would.
Eric, good to see you, brother. Good gentlemen, good to meet you. Thanks for having us on. My name is Ryan. My beautiful wife, Lindsay, and I, we go by Renzi. We're full-time resellers since 2017. Up until most recently, we've been all shoes. We're dabbling in a little bit of clothing, as you can see over my shoulder as well. We've sold on Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, and now we are full-time selling everything on What.
Great. So I did want to, since we have Ryan on the show, did want to always ask, like we do, about 101. We tend to, here at Reseller Information Network, we get a lot of people who are just starting to resell, or maybe they've been reselling for a while, but they've kind of stuck in a rut. So we always like to run an episode called 101, and we're going to go ahead and jump in on that with Ryan. So Ryan, for you, what would be something that you would suggest to people just getting started in reselling?
Yeah, right off the rip, just don't compare yourself to other resellers. Everyone's got a different scene. Everyone's got a different situation. Rather than compare yourself, just learn as much as you can from everyone that you can. It doesn't make sense to compare yourself. Try to be better than you did yesterday. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times, but in terms of 101, in the very beginning when we started, we were comparing ourselves to other people that were, had been doing it for years and years and years. And so obviously you're not going to be either as good or know as much. And it slowed us down in the very beginning. Very quickly, we realized, let's just focus on what we have going on and trying to improve each and every single day while we learn from all these really amazing resellers. And so just 101 for me is do not compare yourself to other people.
It's an interesting concept because today we do a live stream on Tuesdays from like 9 to 12. And today we were in our chat and people were asking about like when to go full time. And one of the things that came up is a lot of times if we're not careful, we watch full-time resellers when we're part-time, like we're not there yet. And that was an interesting comparison because, like you said, you can look at the people who are the biggest in your category, and not saying you can't learn anything from them, but you're not going to get there overnight. Like obviously you said 2017, so now it's a big change.
Yeah. I mean, just think about I follow sports. I play sports. If you think of an athlete that's been training their entire life and then you want to try this sport, it doesn't make sense to, compare yourself to LeBron James or, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky. So like you can, like you said, you can absolutely learn from them and you want to be learning, but just don't, it just brings.
Nice. One of our next episodes that we always like to check with, I know for you, obviously you're dabbling in some others, but we tend to like to hear from our guests. Like, what are you seeing that's trending in the marketplace? So we'll run this segment. So for you guys, let me guess, is it shoes? Are shoes trending?
I mean, I have not met a person yet that doesn't wear shoes. So it's, I would say it is trending. I don't think it's going to go away.
Socks with your Crocs or no socks with your Crocs?
Definitely no socks with my Crocs.
Yes.
But I don't know if you guys know Sanuk. I rock with the Sanuk, and I do wear socks in my Sanuk. So
okay, the real question is, do you sleep with socks on or off?
No socks when I sleep.
Tim has this weird thing. I think Tim's been practicing to be a foot model. Like, so he like keeps his feet like lotion.
I protect my feet from the outside elements at all times. So the only time I don't have socks on is if I'm in water. Like,
well, hey, listen,
water.
If we're talking trending, we get DMs all the time asking for foot pics. So like, there's something there.
Tim, there you go. We were talking about it today.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, sometimes you have a bad week of reselling, and you're thinking maybe it's time to take the socks off and show the world what I've been protecting for the last 39 years. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's good money. I've heard.
That's what the word on the street is, man. It's like I feel like I work so hard, and all these people have to do is just take a picture of their feet.
I mean, I think we could start an app called Only Feet.
I'm sure it's out there already. That's too good not to be out there already.
Isn't that on Poshmark? I'm not sure.
Hey, there could be.
Sell the socks.
Yeah.
You can sell the socks that you wore in the Crocs that have like little dirt circles on them. Like
mayhem.
So with your shoes, what have you seen throughout the year? What do you see trending up, trending down now? Like just like sneakers, because I sell a lot of sneakers as well, and I wanted to see if you see any trends like kind of like what I see, throughout the years.
Yeah, I think the way I'm going to describe it is just like everyday shoes. In terms of being a reseller, it's a lot easier to find them at a low enough buy cost, and there's a big enough buying pool that's willing to pay a little bit more, so I make a profit in the everyday shoes. So all the shelves behind me are basically everyday shoes. I'm not talking about the Jordan 1 releases that just dropped. I'm not talking about the Yeezys. There's, of course, people that want to buy those, but those are a lot harder to find at a low enough buy cost. So trending in terms of the last couple of years for us is just everyday shoes. And I like to build a business around inventory that I can find every day of the week at a good buy cost that also makes it easier to sell. And so just your everyday shoe, your Nike, New Balance, Brooks, Adidas, Puma, both new and used, I think are very easy to build a business around.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think a lot of people do try to look for things like just grails all the time. And honestly, they're hard to find enough as it is. Let alone trying to find that and build a business model around it is definitely near impossible. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult. One of our biggest flips, we got a pair of Nike concepts. They're called the Holy Grail Dunks. They're like this flashy whatever. We got them for $5. We got them authenticated, and then we sold them for $700 on Whatnot. So like $5 to $700, that's obviously very, very good. But we knew right away, like,
you're not gonna
probably never ever gonna happen again, ever. So,
was that a $1 start?
Yeah, we did do a $1 start on that one, but only because we got them for $5.
$5, yeah.
So it was. I mean, I think brand new they retail, or brand new. The market value is around 1,700. So we got them used, sold them for 700. But like I said, we may never, ever come across that ever again. So it's hard to build a business around.
I think that's a really, like, that little thing that we just talked about though too. Like, because a lot of times, with Whatnot, Cernock and I and even Eric, we've been on Whatnot for, 2+ years now. So, like, we've seen a lot of the changes in Whatnot. But what you said, before I forget, I just wanted to bring that up because sometimes people will get an item, right? And if you're selling on Whatnot, you have to have a certain mind state. You have to have a certain ideology. Your focus is a little bit different than if you're selling on eBay and stuff like that. Because like some people will see that item and they'll be like, "Oh, this is a $700 item. Like I gotta get $700, and I'm gonna start it at $700." You might not get anybody to click over on $700, but if you keep in mind, like, hey, I paid $5 for these. Like I don't have to sit down, take pictures, post it, deal with low ball offers. Like I could just start this at $1. What am I really losing? And then boom, it's up to $700. You sold a pair of shoes without wasting any time listening and stuff like that. But I think sometimes it's important for Whatnot, especially to kind of, if you want to continue to burn and turn through inventory and reinvest your money, is to remember that if you pay it for $5, that's a prime. And it's worth that much money. That is a perfect thing for you to do on your show, to start at a low start price to kind of gain that traction and attention from buyers. So I just wanted to make sure that the viewers hear that and really understand what that means.
That's a great point. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Whatnot as we get into this, because I've got a lot of really great thoughts about it. But it is a different beast, man, compared to the other marketplace.
That's actually a great lead into what we do want to talk about. And we're going to deep dive into Ryan and Lindsay's current business models. So let's take that. So Ryan, obviously I remember seeing you on Insta like way back, like to where you guys were sourcing shoes, you're driving around, you're meeting people at McDonald's, like you're passing stuff off, getting things cleaned. And, like I remember you talking about that you had someone who was cleaning shoes for you, someone who was taking pictures, like just trying to, and you had a thrift route that you were going multiple times a week and just going and picking. So talk a little bit about A, like what it used to be like, and then B, like where you guys are at, what you're doing.
Yeah, and I appreciate you following along the adventure the whole time. I mean, there's basically 3 business models that we've done over the course of the last 6 or 7 years since we started in 2017. All of them are still, you can still do them today, but we just graduated into different models. So when we first started, we were going to the bin and we were sourcing pairs under $5. Then we'd clean them up and sell them on Facebook Marketplace, local delivery for $25 a pair. Putting in a lot of sweat equity, both cleaning and driving around. This was before you could even ship on Facebook Marketplace. So we were meet people at McDonald's, the local post office, the local police station, and that was like how we sold our first 1,000 pairs. Buy under $5, clean them up, sell them for $25, meet someone locally. Then someone told me that you can sell stuff on the internet and you don't have to drive around. And I was like, no way. I can ship these things? That's crazy. So we looked into it and we tried a bunch of different marketplaces, but we really landed on Poshmark. Loved Poshmark. We did just under $800,000 in sales on Poshmark, buying at local thrift stores. Average buy cost $10 or under, cleaning them, and then we'd sell them for $39 and up. We did premium pricing with tiered discounts, sharing your listings every single day. Then we graduated into where we are now, which is Whatnot and live selling. Last year, we started in May of last year, and we transitioned. We did used shoes in the beginning, and we transitioned into new shoes. And we're about to cross over $1 million in sales on Whatnot May of last year. Really enjoying the live selling. We were trying to do live selling on Facebook Marketplace. Just going live, like there was no way to accept payment. There was no way. We were just like, hey, we're selling shoes on Facebook. This was back in the day before Whatnot was even created. Obviously we didn't have success with that because there was no way to transact money. But the reason I bring it up is when we found out about live selling and Whatnot, we were like, whoa, we were trying to do this back in the day. Let's see if we could do this on this new marketplace, new to us. Tried it May of last year, fell in love with it. Eventually, it didn't make sense to list on Poshmark anymore because we were selling through stuff so quickly on Whatnot. And we have a couple different models that we do, but we're pouring gas on the fire. We're now building an entire nationwide sourcing team that gets everything up to us up here in Maine. where we live. We live out in the woods in Maine, and then we just sell everything right here out of the basement. 6 figures a month at this point.
Yeah, it's funny when I was listening to you guys at FlipCon this last time, and you guys talking about what your neighbors think you're doing down there is you're actually like shoe cobblers, like they're building shoes in the basement and like taking them out.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of neighbors, and they're all very old. They literally think that we make all the basement. Like they have no idea what's going on. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know it is so interesting to think of because like we said, Tim was the first one I heard talking about one, and Cernock and Tim both applied, and Cernock got on and ran a show, and I was like, dude, I'm in. Like, I want to try this too. But like, we kind of went through some bumps in the road ourselves, so it was so encouraging. Like, for me, even being at Flip, you guys talk about like what's going on with whatnot. Like, Tim's been steady with it for a while. He has changed and shifted a little bit some of the stuff he's doing, but it is exciting to think that there was not even this platform available to now. You've got a whole business model built around it. It's pretty interesting to see that transition. Like, for me, like what did it look like when you guys first started doing it?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, we didn't know anything. If you're listening to this, we had a garage full of shoes, racks and racks of used shoes, and when we tested whatnot, we did it with used shoes. So I think we had around 2,500 active listings on Poshmark. So we took 60 pairs and we said, let's just run dollar auctions. If we sell everything for $1, then we'll say, oh, that didn't work. But it was like a 60 out of 2,500 was not enough. Like, if it went horrible, it wasn't going to drastically hurt our business, but it was enough sample size to say, like, do we have something going here? And after the first stream, it went pretty decent. We ended up selling them for more than we thought we could. We were just doing dollar auctions. And so we're big fans of taking a bunch of at-bats to get a bunch of information. So we did a couple more streams, and it went well. And there's definitely been ups and downs over the last, year and a half on whatnot, but we're constantly looking at data. Obviously after each show, you can look at all the data. We're looking at what's working. We're slowly testing things and growing with the marketplace. I mean, even whatnot itself has changed a lot over the last year. So we're big fans, no matter what marketplace we're using, trying a lot of things, seeing what's working. And then when we find something that works, as we always say, we pour gas on it, and we're never, ever romantic to the things that just are not producing the profit or the lifestyle that we want for our family. And with whatnot, we've really found a good, the ability to, out of our house, build, a multi-million-dollar business, which we didn't think was possible out of our house. We always thought it would have to be out of a warehouse and all these other things. But because of the speed, we're able to do so, and we're going to keep doing it.
Didn't you switch out of your basement for a little while?
Yeah, we did. We did have.
I've been following you as well. So.
Yeah. Before we started using whatnot, over the course of the last couple of years, we've had storage units. We did move into a warehouse and had a full staff. Working at a warehouse at one point. That's when we were on Poshmark. And it was great, but once we had our first child, and then now we have our second child on the way, we realized that we really like working out of our house. And so we transitioned into the 2-car garage. We bought this house in the woods. And we were like, listen, if our business isn't as big as we want it to be, but we're able to walk downstairs and work rather than drive to the warehouse, because we have the kid, our firstborn, we're willing to do that. But then here comes whatnot, and it gives us the ability to build this monster business where we don't have a garage full of shoes and tons of inventory, because it just comes in and sells 100% sell through week after week. Then it opened our eyes to this big opportunity, and we've just continued to build upon that.
That's awesome.
So what the beginning part of the journey before whatnot, right? So it's difficult too, because what I want to do is like I like to see different business models and see what people do, right? And see how, because like you said in the beginning about comparing yourself, how everybody is different. Everybody's situation is different. Their scene is different. I thought that was a good word to use, because, like my thrifting here is a lot different than Eric and Leroy and Cernock. Even though we're all on the East Coast, it's all very, very different, obviously. And then I think, trying to take that information and see how we can give it back out to the community so that you don't necessarily have to do exactly what this person is doing, but there might be pieces of what they're doing that you can apply to your daily routine to help your business be successful. And so like, for me, it's always been difficult to get into shoes. I think, I like to relate things to, like, I sell everything, obviously, but like glass is one of my big things, right? And one of the things is that people hate to deal with glass because they don't want to pack it. They're worried about breaking it and stuff like that. A lot of people don't want to deal with shoes because they don't want to clean shoes, and things like, and then for me, it's hard for shoes because if I go to a thrift store here, a used pair of shoes might be $20. And like, I also really liked how you included what you're trying to buy at. You're trying to keep things that during that time when you were thrifting at, I believe you said $10 cost, right?
Yep.
So how difficult was it for you to source enough inventory to be full time when searching and keeping your costs down at $10 and solely focusing on shoes?
That's a really, really good question. What I love when you ask someone what's their favorite part, usually they say sourcing. I love going and finding, but then they're not willing to put in the sweat equity to like find the shoes at that low buy cost. They just go to the thrift that's 4 minutes down the street and say, well, everything was too expensive or they didn't have enough shoes. So our story, I mean, we're up here in Maine. There is thrift stores, but there's usually not enough volume in terms of quantity. So we drive down to Boston. So the closest place we were sourcing was 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would be like, that's insane. Why would you drive 2 hours away to source all your stuff? Because that's where the best stuff is for where we are in our scene in the volume. So to keep our buy costs down, maybe we'd had to travel a little bit more, but we built a route over time that would allow us to bring in hundreds and hundreds of pairs every single week, average $10 or less of really good stuff. Now, back up. Let's say I don't want to travel 2 hours. You can still build a good business model buying pairs for $20. You're just not going to make the margins that I'm going to make if all my stuff's $10.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to sacrifice one or the other. If it was as easy as going to the thrift store that was down the street and they had 1,000 pairs of shoes that just needed a little bit of scrub on the side, it'd be very easy for all of us to build that business. But this is why I get back to the beginning part of the conversation. If you love the hunt, I'm a savage when I go out there. Like I'm coming home like I'm hunting tigers or in the jungle. Like I'm coming home with food for the family, aka great shoes at a low enough buy cost so I can put food on the table. And because I got really aggressive and savage about the hunt, we were able to build the business. Now that did mean that I have to travel a little bit. Now, eventually we built out sourcing teams, paid them very well to do the sourcing for us and bring it up here. But the reality is whether you're traveling around or you're sourcing online, there's so many shoes that are for sale at a low enough cost where you can make money. You just got to put in the sweat equity.
Well, there's a guy that I know who gets probably the best price on shoes in the entire world, and he's right below me. His name is Cernock. This guy gets like shoes, boots, all types of stuff. I mean, he's paying like, you gonna tell him how much you're paying?
How far are you from West Virginia, Ryan? Like how far are you?
I could probably be there in less than 8 hours.
Okay, so listen, out of all the people that we've told that Cernock, have you ever seen Cernock's basement before? I bet you he would be the first person to actually come source the basement. Because the way he just said savage tiger,
Right.
He'll probably come to West Virginia and source your basement.
I'm gonna ask you if you, at the end of the show, if you can give us 10 minutes so we can give you a basement tour with Cernock. I'd appreciate it because you're gonna like it.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Yeah,
I buy stuff so cheap though. It you know what I'm saying? It's so cheap that you can't buy it. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
I was gonna say, when you say $10 a pair of shoes, Cernock, you could see him kind of cringe a little bit, like, "Oh, you paid that much?" Like, because he actually has a honey hole that is not unlike anything that I've ever seen, and I've sourced all over the place. Like,
I mean, but that's the reality. There's like, you can build a model paying $20 a pair. You can build a 10. But there is opportunity to get stuff super low. I mean, respect to you for finding that. Respect to you. I'm sure you didn't just like accidentally stumble upon it, or even if you did accidentally stumble upon it, it was good on you for pouring gas on that fire. Those opportunities are out there. If people walk into their thrift and there's one pair for $20 and they freak out, like maybe shoe selling is not for you.
See, that's something too that I think that I've learned over the last course of, like, I'd say the last year probably, right? is going to a yard sale and seeing an eBay printout, right? Going to a thrift store and seeing $20 shoes, you know, going to a flea market and seeing like, you know, outrageous prices. Not to not let that necessarily turn me away, but like there's a thing that we talk about here on RIN about nooks and crannies. But it just kind of, I think that when you come across those situations, that's when you kind of have to like, you know, activate the savage that you're talking about and being like, I'm not going to just look at one pair of shoes and turn away because it's $20. I'm going to find the one that might be $15, but I can flip for $125, right? You know, the ones that slip through the cracks and stuff like that. So I think that's a good point to make for sure. But so shoes, how shoes? Were you like because I was a sneakerhead back in the day. Like when I was young, I lived in New York. And there was at the time a place called A-Life, right? And it was like the biggest, like craziest thing out there. Like this is when Nike Dunks like first blew up. This is like 21 years ago, right? And like A-Life was like, there was no advertising. There's no signs, no nothing, right? Like you literally had to go and like, you know, knock and then like they would slide open the little thing and they let you in. And I remember walking in and being like, this is like a movie. Like we had to leave because at the time Eminem had came in and was with Nas and they were like, you know, we got to shut the store down. And they literally like walked in. You could see him out back, pull up the Escalade. This is when Escalades were like the biggest thing. And they literally just went in and was like, I'll take everyone in a size 8 and size 10, size 9. I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. But like, I just remember looking at it. They had mahogany shelves. It was like red velvet backgrounds. Each shoe had its own spotlight. Like we were such geeks for shoes at that time. So like, I know what it's like to be a sneakerhead. Were you a sneakerhead or were you just... It just kind of happened, and then you just saw an opportunity business-wise and went with it, and that's where you're at now.
I have a lot of respect for sneakerheads. I was not a sneakerhead. I mean, I had Reebok pumps growing up, and I love those. But I think we tried a bunch of different categories when we first started reselling, and very quickly we realized we enjoy all the process of shoes. You know, whether it's finding them, of course, photographing them, cleaning them, you know, talking about them. I didn't really enjoy talking about like toasters and like like at one point we were selling wooden bowls and I was like, of course, all those are profitable. I'm not saying you can't build a business, but I just didn't enjoy the whole process. And I think it's important if you want to build a long-term successful business, you have to enjoy all parts of the business, not just the hunt. Otherwise, you're just going to have storage units filled of stuff that isn't even listed. So the reason we stuck on shoes are my very first shoe sale. I had a pair of my Under Armour shoes that, you know, Under Armour running shoes or whatever. They weren't anything special, but they were in good condition, no rips or tears, you know, and I put them up for $25 and a gentleman was like, yo, I'll meet you at the grocery store. I'll buy these for $25. So I met up with him and this guy was huge. He was a monster. As he was approaching me, I was like, I'm like a size 10 and a half, 11. These were a men's 10 and a half. I was like, oh, dude, I messed up. Like I must have put the wrong size or something. This guy's approaching me and he like, I like had the shoes and I hand him the shoes and he hands me the $25. He's like, thanks. I'm like, whoa, dude, wait a minute. Can you like try these on? Cause I don't want you to get home and then message me all pissed off. And he's like, no, I'm good. And I was like, no, please. This is like my first shoe sale. Can you just try them on? So to appease me, he tried to stick his like men's 15 foot into the shoe. His heel's sticking out. His toe knuckles are. He's like, these are great. I'm like, what are you talking about? And we're standing in front of the grocery store. He's like, well, I'm gonna sell these for $50. And I was like, what? What do you mean fit? So like, I was like, there's a market for used shoes. Like he was giving me what I wanted. He was gonna flip them for 50. So I get back to the car and I was like, I think we should look into this like shoe reselling thing because like maybe they're worth more. We were just trying to whatever. And so we were off and running. The last thing I'll say is with shoes, there's literally billions of shoes that are made every single year by all the major brands. So if there's multiple billions of shoes, there's only 8 billion people on the planet. We're always going to be able to get them. We're always going to be able to sell them. We enjoy talking about them. We enjoy all the process. Might as well build a business.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this then. Just to kind of bring this back to like people who are watching this who might like, you know, shy away from shoes. What are some of the things like as far as used shoes go? What are some of the things that like are like the red flags? Like at what point do you like what's your like process when you pick up a pair of used shoes? Because like I know I've been with Cernock before and like, you know, I've seen how he does things, you know, like how he, you know, handles his shoe to like make sure that it's legit, like not say legit as far as authentication, but like in good standing, you know, like structure wise. But like, what are some things that you look at when you're picking up used shoes to kind of like help some of these people that maybe might want to try and start selling shoes?
Phenomenal question. I'm gonna call it the triple T. Like, and I'll explain. What I like to do is I like to go to thrift stores that have a lot to choose. We call them high volume thrifts, right? Like there's hundreds and hundreds of shoes to choose from, which means you can look through a lot of them, say no to a lot of them, but still find a lot of yes. And so the triple T is toe, tread, and then tongue. So picture, I mean, these are the heel out first, but picture at a thrift, they're all, usually you can see the toe first. If you're looking and there's a hole in the toe, you don't even need to pick up the shoe. It doesn't matter if it's a Nike, doesn't matter if it's whatever. If I'm looking at all the toes and I see holes, I pass. But if I see ones that don't have a hole in the toe, the first T, I pick it up. I quickly turn it over. I look at the tread. I mean, we're all adults. We can see if there's good tread or not. Don't lie to yourself. If part of the tread is bald, pass. Move on to the next one. So toe first, then tread, and then I look at the tongue. Obviously, you want to have a readable tongue that shows the size. You're obviously going to be able to tell right away if it's men's or women's. Then you start to look at the rest of it. With that, the 3 T's to start off the rip allows me to look through stuff very, very quickly, but also fill my cart with things that are in good condition. And then once I filled my cart that passed the 3 T's, then I can start looking up comps while I'm in store, taking out the ones that don't have good sell-through rates, no matter what marketplace you're using, and just keep.
So it's cart. It goes in the cart first, and then it goes treasure. So you put it in the cart, you check it. Then if it's no good, it goes back on the shelf, or it stays in the cart or another cart for.
Yeah. Well, I like to fill the cart with the ones that pass that initial quality test, and then I'm going through and looking. You know, obviously I'm taking out the phone. Sometimes you got to go by the window to get some good service and just look up. You know, are these selling well on Poshmark? If you're using Poshmark, that's super important too. There's a different value for every single pair of shoes on every single marketplace. You mentioned M&M earlier. There's a pair of shoes, the M&M Carhartt 4, right? They sell for like $30,000 a pair. I promise you, if you list them on Facebook Marketplace, people are going to laugh at you. The comments are going to blow up. They're going to be like, you want me to pay $30,000 for a pair of M&M Carhartt? Like, you're silly. I wouldn't even pay that much for a car. But if you go on StockX, you can sell them all day for $25,000, $30,000. So like, I'm using a very extreme example. It's the same thing with used shoes. There's a different value on Poshmark, different value on eBay, different value on Mercari, different value on whatnot. So whatever marketplace you're using, it's important to do your research on that one.
When it comes to used shoes, what gets you excited? Like when you're scanning through, and what stops you in your tracks and go, yeah, like I gotta look at these. Like, yeah, I'm particular to a few pairs, you know, like brands and stuff like that. What stops you where you're like, oh, what is this?
Usually if it catches my eye on the shelf, it's going to catch the buyer's eye in your list. So yeah, whatever that does for you, whether it's bright colors, whether it's the Nike swoosh, whether it's the, you know, Air Jordan symbol. There's of course some rare shoes that look like junk, but like as someone who knows shoes, you're like, holy smokes, I just came across these. These are absolutely insane. But if you're just starting out, if you're just a beginner, if it catches your eye on the shelf, most likely it's going to catch the eye of a buyer. So take that into consideration. But then as you learn more and more, I mean, for example, Hoka, I literally the first time I came across Hokas, they got the big sole. I was like, holy smokes, these are like for the guys that distract the bulls in a bull ring. I was like, these are like clown shoes that they, you know, I had no idea that they were like a premium, you know, running brand, that they had a high selling price. So I didn't know anything about that, but I did my research and then found out, you know, Hokas are very good. So if it catches your eye on the shelf, at least put it in the cart to do.
You talked about catching your eye on listing. Okay. Yeah. So you guys are doing no listings right now, right? Just on Whatnot. Okay. Are you guys doing Whatnot? Are you guys like listing the shoes beforehand, filling your store? Or are you guys doing like shoe lot 1 and then running?
So we're about to transition into shoe lot, but so far for just under $1 million in sales, we've listed the shoes. Now, I got to remind you, we're doing new shoes. Mm-hmm. So we'll do one listing, for example, what's over here? This listing right here, there's three different sizes of this shoe. So this is an Adidas Addy foam shoe.
Yeah.
So we'll do one listing, the fakies, where they're right there. Yeah, the fake.
Oh, did you just send me a picture of these, didn't you, Cernak?
Yeah, I just picked up a pair.
There you go. Oh yeah. All day.
They look crazy.
All day.
These caught my eye. I'm like, yo, I've got to get these.
Yeah.
Those so well.
Yeah, and you'll find them everywhere. There's a big buying pool in almost all the sizes. They have different colorways. So why do I like that kind of shoe? Like I can find them 7 days a week. I can hire someone to source them 7 days a week. I can sell them 7 days a week. That makes the business, there's a lot less friction in that business.
Are you guys using the Whatnot Marketplace at all?
We have used it. It's probably, honestly, it's less than 5% of our sales. I mean, we do work with some shoe stores to sell some of their high-end stuff. So we will use Marketplace in that scenario, but 95% of our stuff is, everyday shoes, less than $80 a pair.
The reason why I was asking you all this is because we are big fans of Photoroom, the app. Yep. We utilize artificial intelligent backgrounds in all of our listings now. If you guys didn't know, you can go to Did I do 4 W's? www.photoroom.com. Use the code RIN and start using this now. But yeah, Eric's gonna bring some up so you can kind of see like what we're working with as far as like some of these artificial backgrounds that we're using on Photoroom. It's absolutely killer right here.
Yeah, this is all AI. This would be the shoe otherwise. So things that we're using, like Cernak turned us on to this a while back. It definitely has changed the views as far as what we're seeing on listings. And even I know Tim was using last time talking about how he's started integrating it. And I did too. The last Whatnot show I ran, I actually used some of that as the picture back.
Yeah, so is that because every time I do listings now for my Whatnot shows, I take the time out to try and utilize that background for my listings just because it, like with Whatnot, there's so much competition. When Cernak and I first started on Whatnot, we were doing vintage clothing. Literally, you could schedule a show and we would be the only one live in that category at that time. Now, like, it's crazy, right? So, like, for me, when you're doing Whatnot, it's like, obviously the biggest thing is you want to have, your product. You got to have good product. You got to have good energy. Those are the two biggest things right there, right? Yep. But then outside of that, like you could have the dopest product and you could be crazy live, like and not like over the top, obviously crazy live, like during your lives, like to the point where people are, entertained and they're staying around. But like you could have both of those and there's still going to be somebody that's going to have 10 times the amount of people in your room. So for me, I'm always preaching, adjusting and adapting. So like for me, it's like, maybe if I throw up a little bit of these, my AI background listings in my auction section, that when people are browsing, it looks better. It looks a little bit more professional. It might draw some people in. People might be willing to spend a little bit more money. Maybe the pre-bids are a little bit better, that sort of situation with that listing. So it's just, I always like to kind of just, keep raising the bar. I think that's important that like, it's almost going back to what you said about romance basically falling in love with an item, right? Like, or, you can use that same sort of concept on everything. Like, don't necessarily get comfortable. Don't fall in love with I'm just going to scan the table and throw something up because eventually people will get tired of that. Like, you got to continue to raise the bar a lot. So I always like to throw that out there to our guests. If they're not using Photoroom, it's a good, kind of tool that we're using right now and we're actually really believing in about.
I have a few questions. So I want to go back to your lister. I'm not your listers, your sourcers. Mm-hmm. So you have people that source for you now, and they're all over the East Coast, are they on the West Coast? Can you explain to us how you pick them? Do you get tested like every day? Are these good? Are those good? Give me a little bit. I'm lost with that part.
Yeah. So we try to start with an end goal of like what would be our most ideal scenario, and then we reverse engineer how to get there. It would be really great if we got a bunch of amazing shoes dropped off at our house, right? Now, we tested a bunch of wholesalers. None of it was even close to retail arbitrage thrifting. But then the reality is you got to sacrifice being out there. And for us, we traveled all around New England. We're up here in the woods in Maine, but we travel all around New England. We have sourcing routes everywhere. But with our firstborn here and our second child due in November, we were like, we can't be away that long. So that's why we built the sourcing team. Now, anyone who's listening to this is probably going to say, like, why would you teach someone to source the best shoes? Why wouldn't they just well, you pay them very well, and you realize that the reality is you do teach people, and then they do take the best shoes. But there's so many shoes that you just hire the next person to come in. So over the years, we've built sourcing teams. Right now, we have sourcing teams in Boston, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Connecticut.
So what if somebody wants to be on your team? How do they contact you? Are you full? Are you still looking for people for?
We're always looking for people. The door is always open. It's very we're looking for very motivated people. We pay very well. You know, sometimes our sourcing team makes $1,000 per day. So like we're paying very well, but it's we've ran the routes that we're hiring people to do. So we know exactly what it takes. We know exactly that, like, there's no riffraff. And we also don't want it to take people a week. Like, we want them to go out, source, get paid very well for the day, and then be on with their business. So we respect what it takes to put in. We pay very well, but we also built a model that respects our profit and loss because we've sold tens and tens of thousands of pairs of shoes. I think in order to source for us, you do have to have some knowledge, but you also have to realize, like, you're part of a team. You're part of a bigger cog. If you just go out and you come home with 5-10 pairs of shoes, that's not going to work. Like, you got to go out and come home with hundreds of pairs of shoes. Now, you had mentioned one thing that I want to magnify. I've gotten over 400 text messages since we've started talking today from our sourcing team.
Okay.
Now listen, I love it. My wife is responding to all of them. That's great communication. I love that. Now the more that they communicate with us, the less they need to, but I love it. Hey, what do you think about these? I'm like, yeah, grab 30 pairs of those. Hey, what do you think about these? You know, those aren't selling very well. Let's pass on those. And then the more communication that we have, instead of 400 text messages, it becomes 100 because they know, and the team's just running. Now, we just built out this part of our team in this region that's text messaging us 400 times. So that's expect. The team in Boston very rarely has to message us because they know what we're looking for. They know the price point. And then it just becomes getting the inventory shipped up here.
So you guys 100% new shoes right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's all RA.
Yep.
All right. So can we break it? Can I break it down a little bit then?
Of course.
I'm curious. This is where I get curious. Okay. So those Addy foam Q. Okay. Because I see Addy foam Qs. I see a pair of NMDs. I see some Oswegos back there. Yep. You know, like yeah, I know shoes because, like, you know, I do a lot of RA too. Okay. So those Addy foam Q. What is your buy cost on those? Are y'all, because I haven't seen those less than $25.
So our average buy cost is $35 or under.
Okay.
We average across the board. Sometimes we buy shoes for 90. Sometimes we buy shoes for 10. But at the end of the day, all the pairs come in after we've paid our staff. We're at about $35 per pair.
Okay.
All in.
And then on Whatnot, what are those going? Like, what's the, you know, because what I think it is because a lot of people, here's my thing. A lot of shoe sellers are going to watch this and be like, bro, why isn't he putting those up on eBay for $100 right now? And what I tell them is, and I know a little, because I've been following you too for a while, is like, look, the Whatnot right now is quantity. You're just selling straight up quantity. You're not worried about the, like, yes, you do want to make, you know, what you bought them for an extra, but it's more just quantity. So if you're making, and I know this, you know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're making $10 to $12 a shoe, you're good, right?
Yeah. So our model, I'll explain it to a T.
Okay, cool.
Because like the reality is, I love, we share this on our social media. I love this. It's very repeatable. You just got to put in the sweat equity. For us, it is exactly what you said. Whatnot is not about patience. Whatnot is about, let's get it all done. So on average, on a slow week, we'll bring in 500 pairs and they'll all be sold within 4 days. On a high, we'll bring in 1,500 pairs and they'll all be sold in 4 days. We have a model where our average buy cost is $35. We start everything on our restock stream at $59. Every pair, Jordans, everything you see on the shelves, we'll start it at $59. Now we'll sell through a bunch of inventory that way, you know, $59, $59. Now, of course, it's an auction, so it'll go up to 60. Go up to 70, go up to 80. We average in the 70 or 80s for our restock stream on Thursday nights. Then once we've paid for the entire haul that week, we run everything else at $1. So there's no financial risk, and we're in relationship building mode. This is what we learned from Nike. This is what we learned from Amazon, where even though our average buy cost is $35, let's say we spend 10 grand in the $59 auctions, we're getting back after fees, let's call it 11 grand. We like to be in the profit. Then we've got hundreds of shoes left over that we just run at $1, and everyone scoops those up and everything's sold. Then they come back next week for the restock. So it's in and out very, very quickly. Our average is right around 23% net profit margin after everything is absolutely sold. But it's all gone in and out within 4 days.
So that's interesting because that's kind of like the concept that I've used, but not with Whatnot. So it's like I'll put something up on eBay, Etsy, Mercari, Poshmark, Grail, Depop, right? And then so like I'll list it at the price that I want to list it at. And then if it's not selling Then it's like, okay, and I'm getting ready to do a Whatnot show. I'll pull it from there and I can start it at a much cheaper price on Whatnot because, I've already, from the haul of stuff, I've already made my money. This is not obviously not selling right away. If I want to burn and turn and have money to reinvest, then I could take it to Whatnot and I could sell it for a little bit cheaper. Sometimes the same price, sometimes more. But, obviously I go in with the mindset that I'm going to be selling it for cheaper because it's Whatnot, So that's an interesting concept. I like how you're doing the structure of the shows. So is it just 2 shows a week?
No, we do a bunch of shows. I mean, we're transitioning into a different tiered model, but if we're only talking because we have apparel now and we've built relationships where we're getting lots more stuff coming in. So, but with the model I'm talking about, it would be like Thursday night would be the big restock stream. Then we'd run a couple streams on Friday. And then depending on where our profit and loss sheet says determines when we go into dollar auction. So like if we do really well on Thursday night and Friday morning and Friday afternoon with our $59 starts, we may jump in to dollar starts on Saturday. If for some reason it doesn't go as well, we keep doing the $59 starts because we're protecting ourselves financially until the whole haul for that week is paid. Then we get into dollar starts. So like it really depends. And that's why we keep track of everything. Literally after every show, we're documenting, where we're at for the week. And in real time, we can make that decision. We don't move to dollar auctions because dollar auctions are super risky. They could sell for less than $35. So we don't do that until the inventory has been paid for.
What is your average on your dollar auction?
A lot less than $59. It's probably, low 40s, high 30s. If I had to pick a number out of the hat, I mean, like you were saying earlier, Tim, some stuff still goes for higher because there's some hype, but on average, it, right around $40 on dollar auction.
How many viewers are? Now, another thing too, let the people know, like y'all built this, y'all have had a boom, boom, boom. So can you bring us through the journey? How many, when y'all were first doing shoes, you said you had about 25 people. Lead us up to like how it grew for you and like how you grew it too, because I think a lot of people miss that about Whatnot. They go, oh man, I'm gonna get on there, I'm gonna just sell boots today, and they don't do any promotion, they don't do anything, and then when they get 2 people doing and they don't sell anything, they're like, oh, Whatnot sucks, and you can't, it doesn't work, and Ramsey's all his sales are fake. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you've heard that before. You know what I'm saying?
We got DMs like that today. People are like, oh, it's easy for you.
So kind of describe to our audience what it takes to grow on Whatnot and what things you need to do if you want to be successful in Whatnot. Because yes, y'all are successful now, but tell them how it grew, because I think a lot of people's thinking about it is like, well, I can just get on there and sell $10,000 worth of stuff and without having to do anything. So just tell them like what it takes.
Yeah, I think with any marketplace, it takes a lot of growing and building. I mean, there was plenty of streams where I'm in the basement for 4 hours doing, higher starts and I sold like 3 pairs in 4 hours, which makes no sense. I was not romantic to that at all. I was like, this isn't going to work. Let's change it up. Let's figure it out. So the reality is when we first started, there was less than 10 people in our stream. And then we're very good about shedding what's not working very quickly. And like, if we find a little bit of thing that's working, and one thing that worked for us was just acknowledging whether there was 2 people in the stream or 20 or 30, we would just say, hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for stopping in. And then eventually those people would be like, oh, I come to your stream all the time because you just said my name. Just basic human psychology. Hey, thanks for coming in my store, whether it's virtually or in person, obviously. And then listening to what people want. I never would have picked up men's 16, but this gentleman named Doug, he would come in all the time and he'd be like, hey, do you have men's 16? I'm like, we don't right now, but if you are interested, I could probably hunt down some men's size 16. And we brought in 1 or 2 pairs. And then he was like, wow, you actually got what I was looking for. Thank you. And then that's called, scaling the unscalable. You can't satisfy everyone's request, but if they see that you're trying your best, that works. And here's the last thing. I've never focused on how many people I have in the stream ever. Like I can tell you, it's grown. To this day, we'll probably have like 100. We've had as many as 2,000 in our stream at one time, and as low as 2. But I'll tell you what, the 2,000, it was very difficult to manage when there was 2,000 people in the stream.
Yeah.
So like all these people saying, I wish there was so many people in my stream. No. It's a whole different beast. It's a whole different beast when you got 2,000 people shouting at you. I mean, just picture a room, 2,000 people, and they're like, "What do you got in men's 11? What do you got?"
They're all yelling at you.
They're all yelling at you. So I like when I see people that have a few people in their stream and they're focusing on like just communicating back and forth. I mean, whether it's social media following, whether it's a following on eBay, whether it's a following on Poshmark or whatnot, you just have to put in the reps, put in the time, listen to what people are asking for, and then build a business around exactly that.
Yeah,
For sure.
It takes last thing I'll say, it takes rep. You know, we watched probably 100 YouTube videos on people selling on Whatnot before we did our first stream to like learn the pros and cons. And we watched card sellers. We watched a bunch of other sellers. And we realized like, all right, this is gonna grow bigger. So us selling shoes now, and there's not a lot of people doing used shoes, there's gonna be a lot more.
It's worth the investment.
It's worth the investment to be ahead of the wave. There's plenty of places. And here's the last thing. I mentioned it earlier. I only got a couple more minutes, but the last thing, we went live on Facebook Marketplace to try to sell, right? Before we knew what Whatnot was, Lindsay and I enjoyed. We used to call it the Rinzy Market, right? And we were in our storage unit. I was wearing like a one-piece winter like snowmobile suit because it was super cold. And we were just in our storage unit trying to sell our shoes. Now it's hilarious because there's the logistics of it. There's no way to transact. There was no like, the person's like, do you want me to mail you a check? And I was like, that'd be great. Just mail me a check. Here's my address. When I get it, you can sell. So the reason I bring that up is like, we enjoy the live interacting aspect. If you're going to use Whatnot, you got to enjoy going live. If you don't, you should probably use eBay. You should probably use Poshmark. You know, you should probably use these marketplaces where you don't have to be in front of.
There you go. Well, we appreciate you coming and hanging out with us today, Ryan, for sure. And man, guys, I mean, like you said, we preach this all the time that you don't necessarily have to do everything like someone else. And I love starting the show today with the comparison. And obviously, like I've took a whole page of notes myself. I've already heard part of what Ryan is talking about, but I definitely do encourage you. Check those guys out on Whatnot and Instagram. Is where you'll find Renzi. Keep track of their journey. Ryan, we're going to give you a chance to say later to the people.
Hey, gentlemen, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's been a blast. I hope we can do it some more. I take a lot of pride in being shoulder to shoulder with gentlemen like yourself and growing my business. Sometimes it can seem, super lonely. So I'm glad that you're hosting this type of thing where you can connect people that would never normally bump into each other. Obviously connecting virtually, but like Eric, we've seen each other twice over the last 2 years and it's been a blast every time. And so I really do appreciate you welcoming in. Now, with that said, we take a lot of pride too in talking to people on Instagram. So don't be shy, shoot us a DM. There's no such thing as a silly question. We're big fans that like, there's enough shoes for everybody to get their piece of the pie. I mean, the reality is there's not enough people who are willing to do what people that watch this show do. So we can share all the secrets. There's not enough people that are willing to go out there and actually do it. And I'm a big fan of sharing all the secrets. I've had a lot of people that have shared some really great information with me. So to give back to the community that's given me so much is something that we like to do on a daily basis. So reach out on Instagram. Come say what's up, whether you buy anything or not on Whatnot. Pop in and say hello. And just appreciate the time today with you, gentlemen.
It's always a pleasure to bring someone like, Renzi on here. So thank you so much for coming along and talking about your journey on Whatnot. I think a lot of people have that question, like, should I do it? Should I not? And this kind of gives a good example of like kind of the slow approach, the slow and steady approach, adjusting, adapting, finding out what works, listening to your customers. It's all those things wrapped up in one, because everyone's looking for that one secret. It's like, it's not one secret. It's a culmination of all this stuff. So yeah, thank you so much,
Leroy.
I appreciate you coming on. I'm just so excited that somebody from New England I don't care if you sold. I don't care if you sold dice. It doesn't matter to me. I sell tools, and that's all I sell. So. And I also like that you're very down, because I'm pretty niche down, so I feel like I don't feel alone. But thank you very much. Please tell your wife we said thank you as well for her time letting you be with us.
I appreciate that. I will.
Yeah, the 400 text messages she's taking care of. Thank you, Lindsay.
we broke 500. We broke 500.
Tim, take us out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you guys for rocking with us here on the Reseller Information Network. Big shout out to all the channel members. Big shout out to everybody who is watching on Tuesdays. Make sure you keep those comments and questions coming in. Let us help you, because that's what we are here to do. Big shout out to my guy Ryan for coming on and showing us his way and the words of wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, if he doesn't do it, I might do it and put that quote on a t-shirt, sweat equity. I love it. I love it. I love it. Big shout out. We appreciate all the love. We appreciate all the support. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to tell a friend about RIN Reseller Information Network.